Hello everyone, welcome to my channel
Let
Ravi's Static
us
Future. So in this series of
discuss
pharmacology, we are moving further and taking
monoamines
another topic
now.
which is monoamines. So
We will
let's
be
introduce about
talking
the
about
monoamine. It is the neurotransmitter or
acetylcholine,
neuromodulator
dopamine,
that contains one amine group
norepinephrine,
connected to
and
an aromatic ring by
serotonin
two
here.
carbon chain. Examples to be dopamine, norepinephrine or serotonin.
Acetylcholine is
So basically
mainly
monoamines is the group
excitatory
of
in the
aromatic
brain.
chain and it is helpful to send to
It
signal
is
one
the
neurons to other neurons.
transmitter
It is
released
like that.
from
And
motor
it has have their
neuron
connected
nerve
to the aromatic
endings
ring
at
which
the
will have to the two carbon
neuromuscular
chain. So
junction
it is example of
and at
dopamine and
collateral
norepinephrine like happy's
axon
hormone or like
synapses
mood
with
relaxing hormone.
branchial cells
So the
in the
monoamines is a
spinal
neurotransmitter
cord.
are involved in the regulation of the process
The
such as emotion,
excitatory
arousal,
effects
contain
of
type of memories. So these kind of
acetylcholine
condition
on central
everyone's in happening in their
neurons
life.
are
So all they
usually
have to control,
mediated
regulate
via
and operate in our
muscarinic
body by help of
receptors,
monoamines, which is the neurotransmitter
predominantly
present in
of
our
the
neurons and send the signal from
M1
one neuron to other
subtype.
neuron. Next is to be like that.
Nicotinic
So here is the
receptors
presynaptic
are
neuron, here is the
also
postsynaptic neuron,
present in the
and this is the
brain.
calcium channels, and there is a
They
synaptic
have a
vesicles. So
different
in their synaptic
subunit
vesicle, there is a trapped of
construction.
neurotransmitter
Take
modulator,
alpha
and in
4
this
beta 2
presynaptic terminal
from
and the postsynaptic
peripheral
terminal, which is the
receptors and a
neuron
different
junction, and
pharmacology.
in this junction there is a signal will be
Most
transmitted via
central
the help of
nicotinic
neurotransmitter
receptors
or
are
acetylcholine, and
presynaptic
which is
and
regulate our body
increase the
emotions,
release of
arousal, mood
many
swings.
other
All of the things will be
transmitters.
uh, based on this mechanism. So
However,
release of
their
neurotransmitter
only
synthesized from
known
the precursor
clinical
under the influence of
importance
enzymes.
is
So
in
these
nicotine
systems is based on the
dependence.
enzymes which is like wrapped into the
Cholinergic
inside the
neurons are particularly
synaptic
abundant in the
vesicles
basal
stout
ganglia,
in the
and
vesicles which is
others
storing this
seem to
action
be
potential
involved
arrives
in
at axon
cortical
terminal. So
arousal
if there is any kind of
responses
activity in showing
and
in your
in
body,
memory.
so the potential has to be stored in the vesicles
Atropine like
in the axonal
drugs can
terminal. This is the
impair
terminal end.
memory,
Voltage
and
gated
the
calcium channels open
anesic
and the calcium
action of
into the cell. So
hyoscine
this is the voltage
is
channel
made
calcium, and
use
it
of
will
an
so synaptic
anesthetic
vesicles are released by
premedication.
these gate channels and
They
enter
are
into the
also
cell,
used for
and the
their
fusion of synaptic
central
vesicles with synaptic
actions
membrane,
in
and
motion
these
sickness
channels have
and
to like
Parkinson's disease. Loss of
excrete out the
cholinergic
synaptic vesicles
neurons
into outside of
and
the cell, and it will
memory
easily bound to
are
the
prominent features of
exocytosis
Alzheimer's
occur, and these
disease,
are binding with
for
the
which
postsynaptic
there is
receptors and
no
deactivators either
effective
by the
treatment
reuptake
at
of enzymatic
present.
degradation. It means either
Donepezil,
their presynaptic
clantamines,
membranes is
and
bind to the
ribostigmine
postsynaptic membrane,
are
or either it will be enzyme is
anticholinesterases
to be
of
degraded
modest
by the
benefit
here
in up
reuptake
to
enzyme. So if there is
50%
too
of
much
patients
like
with
presyn
Alzheimer's
synaptic
disease.
vesicles is to be released into the voltage gate channel, so
Dopamine
it will be stopped
generally
at.
inhibits
So
central
exocytosis, in exocytosis binding with four synaptic receptors,
channels.
if the neuron transmitter of
Dopaminergic
the
pathways
voltage gated channels will be excrete out the synaptic
oxidase
vesicle.
in the
So if they
midbrain
are bind to post synaptic
and
membrane,
basal
so signal
ganglia
pass to the
and
neuron to neuron,
midbrain,
ultimately it will be bind to the
limbic
neuron to the
cortex,
muscle junction will be
upper limbic
do different kind of
structures.
activity. And if in neuron muscular junction, and if they are too much
Sparing
excrete out
of
via the neurons, so the reuptake of
pathways
the
involved in
neurons is
regulating
also the
prolactin
activity of their
release.
neuronal functional activity. So what is that?
The
It will be stop
neurostriatal
that the excrete out the
pathways
enzymatic action of the cell of neuronal
modulate
cell. So
control
stop
of
and reuptake to
voluntary
the either
movement,
it will dopamine or non-norepinephrine hormones
generating
or receptors
results
to
in
stop their
Parkinson's
feelings and emotion
disease.
emotions where either it will be too much excrete out into the neural signals. So that is the exocytosis will be occurring in the two manners. So the monoamines is a neurotransmitter are dopamine, serotonin, histamine, acetylcholine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. There is all of the body functional activity like emotion, arousal, happiness, sadness, and different kind of activities based on this neurotransmitter or hormonals. So that is the introductory part of the monoamines. So first is the dopamine. So dopamine is a 3,4-dioxy phenethylamino is a high concentrated in corpus stratum and two limbic system, which is three hypothalamus and four frontal cortex. It means it has the 3,4-dioxypetanol amino group which is present in dopamine and which send the signal which is higher concentrated on vesicles in synaptic and which is present and which is regulated by the corpus stratum and limbic system, which is present in hypothalamus and also the frontal cortex to strongly operate our body. The function of the dopamine, what is the function of dopamine in our body? So reward and motivation, motor control. So if you are like feeling to achieve like prizes and like record in your different place or different, if you are like taking the reward in the games, so the pleasure moment you have to be shown the releasing of dopamine hormone into your body and also the motor control, different kind of motor activity into the body like reflex are the body movement and like doing different activity. So that is the base on the control by the dopamine hormone, also the cognition and memory like working memory. So all you have to do like you have to write this paragraph, so it will be stored into the memory and after that it will be seated in your examination, so recognized it and remembering it. So that is the also the work of the dopamine and cognition, remembering this paragraph into the examination hall, also the attention and learning. So if you are like seated in a hall or conference room to pay attention or like listen carefully up to something which important for your future, so that is the dopamine hormone or dopamine neurotransmitter will be activated on that time, so it will be stored that in your keep memory into the brain. Low dopamine, if in your body it will be low dopamine release, so what will be action have to be shown? So tiredness, unmotivated, unhappy, memory loss, mood swings, sleep problem, and concentrated problem related occur into your body. So these are some condition if your dopamine is to be released down, so that is the symptoms will occur in your body. If the dopamine is to be high, so what in condition is to be in song? Euphoric, unenergized, being more aggressive. So if you are too much dopamine release, so there is too much aggressiveness come in your body, and unenergized, it means you have to be less energy in your body and euphoric in kind of body in your happen. Disease associated with low levels of dopamine. If this is the symptoms you have to shown in for low dopamine release, and if the long term exposure of the dopamine is to be low release, so it will be cause attention deficit hyperactivity and also the Parkinson disease you have to be so, and restlessness leg syndrome. So these three conditions you have to be long exposure of the like few amount of releasing dopamine, that will be cause disease associated with the dopamine. So if too much dopamine release, so it will be cause schizophrenia, and if too much low amount of dopamine release, it will be cause Parkinson disease. So by Parkinson disease there is also a function of dopamine is to be motor control. So the if the dopamine is released very low amount, so long term it will be low amount will be dopamine release, it will be cause parkinson because the motor control is to be lost into the parkinson disease. And if too much dopamine will be released into the body, so motor control is to be hyperactivate. And if if you are showing the patient of schizophrenia, there is too much hyperactivity you have to show into the patient. So dopamine agonist, so if there is low dopamine, so agonist dopamine, it will be enhance and boost their dopamine releasing factor into your body. So drugs that make the natural neurotransmitter dopamine is that dopamine agonists are used to treat Parkinson disease, depression, and restlessness syndrome, and hyperpolarinemia. So medication include in paramyxolone and apomorphine and bromorphine. So these medication, it help to boost and re-release and act as a neurotransmitter of the dopamine to release them and do different dopamine activity in your body in a regulatory way. Dopamine agonist, if this medicine are taking on that time which too much dopamine release in your body, so if too much dopamine release, there is a symptoms to be shown as schizophrenia. So on that time, the blocking dopamine receptor in your brain, so there is a normal mechanism is to have to be blocking the dopamine neurotransmitter into the body is to be in the body functional system, in the physiological system is to be there. But if there is not stop, so the dopamine agonist medicine will be taken on that time. So used to treat schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, nausea and vomiting. So medication include two dopamine agonist antagonists are apiprazole, olanzapine, and dropidrole. So these medication are used to stop them dopamine release is too much. So where are dopamine reuptake inhibitor? What are reuptake inhibitor? So it are those drugs that prevent dopamine from re-entering and being reabsorbed by nerve cells that are released. It means there is medication that help to dopamine reuptake. It means it will be that the condition will be dopamine, it will release very few amount, so it will be stopped, like it will be uh, stop them reuptake of dopamine and it will continuously releasing. So there is a cell, if dopamine is released very few amount into the cell, so after that the neurotransmitter is to be block them the activity and the reuptake is to be shown in dopamine. But the reuptake of the dopamine will be stopped after the, if you are taking the medication, so reuptake is to be stopped. It will be given by those patients who have to be like very few amount of dopamine release and like feeling sadness, or like also the you have to be shown the condition is to be tiredness, unmotivated and unhappy, memory loss. So these patients have to be these dopamine reuptake inhibitor very essential for that. So it makes more dopamine available to more neurons in your brain. So if the dopamine is like few amount of release, so it will be reuptake is to be stopped. And so also helpful to other neurons to perform the different activity like motivated, happiness and control your like brain and attention. So why? Because only nearby the brain there is some few amount of neurons, they reached out the dopamine and free like few amount of neurons show the activity, and in the peripheries and the other part of the body there is no any kind of uh, dopamine will be reached out. So on that time the dopamine reuptake inhibitor essential for that to reuptake is to be stopped. That dopamine reuptake inhibitor are used to treat depression and necroplasy, and the overcome addictions such as smoking, overeating, and being eating. So medication are bupropion and modafinil. So these medication are stop that reuptake of the dopamine, which is essential for our body, and it will be helpful to those patients who have to be like addiction of the smoking. So it will be stopped that, like overeating addiction, it will be also stopped that, and depression, too much depression. So on those patients have to be dopamine reuptake inhibitor is essential for that to reuptake is to be stopped at, and the mood is to be happily, and the anxiety will be reduced, depression will be reduced, and the motor control is to be occur into the voluntary by the muscle by the brain thereon. So that is the dopamine and neurotransmitter of the monoamine. So thank you.